Why can't you just leave my daddy alone?
Oh, Cassie. This must all seem like a bunch of confusing grown-up stuff to you, huh? Well, think of it this way. Your school has rules, right? Like, you can't draw on the walls. Well, your daddy went to Germany and drew on the walls with Captain America. And that was a violation of Article 16, Paragraph 3 of the Sokovia Accords. Now, as a part of his joint plea deal with Homeland Security and the German government, he was allowed to return to the U.S., provided he served 2 years under house arrest, followed by 3 years of probation, and avoid any unauthorized activities, technology, or contact with any former associates who were or currently are in violation of said accords or any related statutes. Okay, sweetie?
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 142 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I am Becca and as always joined by my fellow co-hosts and quantum scientists, Chris Byrne and Dave Pond. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Is that quantum as in Ant-Man or Bond? I'm confused. It's like, what's Bond got to do with this series?
Well, she is. Well, she's reported. She in the week of. Been the big news of the week, isn't it? Because Eon decided to wait till the biggest film of the decade's released and then sneak out an amateurist presentation on a film with no title
and steal its thunder. Completely steal.
Yeah, well, Avengers has now dropped like a stone and only taken $47 this weekend. Thanks to the juggernaut that is fucking Good Morning America.
The juggernaut that is Bond 25.
Yes. Oh dear.
That's not what we're here to discuss, but did either of you see it?
Not really. I mean, I know I've read the basic details, like who's in it and whatnot, but...
Right. Did you see the presentation, Becca?
I did. It left a lot to be desired.
It was embarrassing.
I love the glamorous location. GoldenEye Jamaica, why not? But yeah, it wasn't very professional, shall we say.
It was terrible. They got this presenter on who they didn't even... either she didn't bother prepping or the whole show didn't bother prepping her. So they started off with her talking to Barbara, Michael, and I can't remember if Carrie was there to start with. I think he was Carrie, the director. And they're not great interviews. I mean, I love Barbara Broccoli, but she's never been a particularly interesting interview, full stop. But she was, but then you had him saying, they said within about 2 minutes they didn't have a title, which immediately killed my interest. And then he said, well, that's standard. When we start these things and do our big announcements, we never have a title. And it's like, I'm sorry,
yes, you
are you losing your mind? You've had one for each of the last like 4 films, at least. And you nearly always have one. You nearly always have your title ready. From GoldenEye forward, you did for at least 2 of the Brosnan entries, and you have for all of the Craig ones. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then they cut to like a presentation. Then they announced some of the cast, most of whom weren't there, and then they cut inside to, I think it was the new Bond girl, the name Anna what's she called again?
I have to look her up. Anna, there's something.
Yeah, she was in Blade Runner 2049 anyway, and I've just suddenly blanked on her name. The lady from Captain Marvel, Naomi was there, Leia Seydoux was there, Carrie was there, Daniel Craig was there, and they talked to Daniel about Fifth. You know what I mean? He is James Bond, and they spoke to everyone else first, and the questions were terrible. They went...
yeah, they took their time getting to him, didn't they?
And then they said to him, right, we're thinking, right, this is a guy who a lot of the audience aren't sure whether he wants to be back. I've never bought into all that, but, And it cuts to him, and something's gone wrong in the scheduling, because he looks fit and ready, but his eyes looked red. The actual whites of his eyes had gone red, so there's some jet lag or something going on there. And their question was, what's your favourite car? Which is just like, brilliant, that's what I want to know after 5 years away and all the production problems. What's your favourite car? And he said, it's got to be the DB5. And she didn't know what that was. Like the most famous car in the world at one time, and like very high up a crib list that you would give to people. And she did not know what the DB5 was. And then it was like, what's your favourite gadget? And it's like
Facepalm.
she was asking the girls, like, "What's it?" Girls, sorry, women, Bond girls. But what's it like to be in a Bond
Ladies.
film? And it's like, yeah, but they're Bond girls, aren't they? Clearly, but I don't mean girls outside.
No, we know what you mean. It's fine.
They sound like the most laziest questions in the world.
It was. I described it as being what it's like. It's probably what Lorraine Kelly's demo reel from the 1980s would have looked like. Do you know what I mean? Someone before they're seasoned and professional, but it's got that real light, frothy, this morning tone, but nowhere near as professional.
Completely inoffensive.
But nowhere near as professional. They didn't have a title. And I mean, apart from two of the women who were like surprises, the only big name that like would have resonated with the general public was Rami Malek, and he wasn't there because of Mr. Robot. He did do a little video, to be fair, and he looked more animated and interested than anyone else.
Yeah, I think out of all the whole thing, I think I enjoyed his video more rather than the whole reveal.
And the thing is,
for example,
yeah, they then had a day of like press and promo, so they would then break off into little groups and little teams and sit in different places. So you've got Craig with Fukunaga, but they're sort of sat outside, and then you'll see another one and he sat with Leia and Carey, and they're sat inside somewhere, and there would just be like little mixes and matches. And some of those little interviews are better. There's a small one on the BBC where Craig talks about it being his last, and I'm thinking anyone who says he doesn't look engaged should have watched that little video because he looks fine there. But
yeah,
the actual
right.
it went out to the world on the 007 channel. I was watching it, and at its peak it had 12,000 people watching it. Absolutely embarrassing.
Is that all?
12,000. Yeah, absolute shit. And I just, you know, if you
I suppose then you got kind of streaming repeat. I mean, you got it on like Sky and Sky Media Channel, for example.
Bits, yeah, millions will
exactly,
see bits.
So.
But it was just there's just
on
no
that channel
beat
alone,
or
there wasn't very many.
anticipation. And they embarrassed themselves. The day one of the biggest films of all time adjusted.
They could have timed it better, I suppose, rather than on the release of Marvel, which is like
they're just
anticipated
amateurs
film
now.
of the year, if not the decade.
And when I look at Michael and saying, well, we didn't have the title loads of times, I'm thinking,
yes, Michael.
Well, I'm just thinking, is something.
Time to retire.
But he's just aged about 15 years since I last saw him. He suddenly got like I'm really quite worried about it. I've never seen anything that amateurish, and people will argue, well, it's the film that's important. Well, that's true, but we're waiting an incredibly long time, and they can't even do some of the sort of press and PR basics now. That was shit. I was so embarrassed, you know. It's like, the thing is, I do think the Bond people think they're above going to like San Diego Comic-Con or something. And I'm thinking you'd be much better served, and just naturally sat in All H, it would immediately be a more professional presentation.
Yeah, I wonder if we are going to see the trailer and title reveal. I don't know, but it's speculation at this point.
Well, the title will come with the teaser now, won't it?
Yeah, that's the way it goes, obviously following in the footsteps of Avengers and Star Wars.
Do you think, I mean, I don't think necessarily it's like they think they're above them necessarily. I just don't think they have the foresight to think of that, or they don't see Bond fitting in for whatever reason. They haven't had this. I don't think it's right for Bond to be in with like the Comic-Con kind of crowd. It's not his scene.
But the problem is that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy there, because I've heard people go, well, that's not his demographic, and I think, well, yeah, well, that's the reason the demographic's going to fucking die. It'll always be fairly big in this country, and I think that misleads people, because our press is always full of who's going to be the next James Bond and the same 4 or 5 really tired names. And there's always a lot of hype around it here. But the rest of the world and every other demographic, it has to be earned. And they're doing nothing to earn it. And I couldn't believe it. I timed my break to watch it. And within 2 minutes, my jaw would hit the floor. I just thought, I can't believe how amateur this is looking. I can't believe they've hyped this up for no title. They haven't got many of the key cast there, and they've hired someone to present it who's got seemingly no interest. But you don't necessarily need to be a Bond fan to present that. It's a job, but like at least do the fucking work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do a bit of research.
Learn the order of films and some of the key gadgets and cars. I mean, she'd not heard of the DB5, and yet she had written down to ask, "What's your favourite car?" It's like, well, if you don't know what some of the potential answers are, what are you going to say when you get an answer? Fucking joke.
Oh, what's that? Ah,
What's that
I
then?
heard of that. She was probably expecting some obscure kind of car and thinking like, oh, I'm not going to know it.
The only two people who came out of it like, well, really. Rami's video was all right. I mean, live during the event. Later, Rory Kinnear did a really funny little video.
Yeah, he's actually quite funny, isn't he?
But on the day, the only one who looked like engaged and alert and really like professional was Naomi. Naomi looked like it was her first time and she was excited about it. Everyone else...
She's very glamorous. I thought she always brings a bit of glamour to whatever she does.
Yeah, she's not aging at all.
No, she looks the same.
She looks exactly the same
She's
she did in
just-
Skyfall
she's like-
7 years ago.
Yeah, she's like the female Dorian Gray.
I know, so, yeah.
No, she's effortless beauty.
But
you know,
yeah, we've been
effortless
asked. I
beautiful.
mean, this is not a Bond show. We're going to change the subject in a minute, but we're happy to give a few minutes over to it because a lot of people have been sort of asking our opinions on it, and you know, there's only so many times you can say in sort of tweet length, "What a fucking joke." And it's worried me now. Yes, the end film matters, but if they think that is slick and professional, and they haven't got a title. That's the thing with Star Wars. I believe. They just don't want to tell us, and they know when they want to reveal it.
Yeah, they got it all planned.
I don't think Eon have a title at the moment,
No.
and that tells you where they are, and it's really worrying.
Well, principal photography just started today in
It
earnest.
started
so...
today, yeah. We're recording this on Sunday the 28th, and that it did start today. It started on a Sunday over in Jamaica. So, yeah.
Yeah, they posted the image of the clapperboard.
Yeah,
They
so
did.
they'll be filming the scenes where Leia Seydoux gets brutally murdered and Bond has to get all personal.
Unfortunately, you're probably right.
Well, the way the synopsis reads, I don't think she's necessarily
No.
going to die at the start.
Well, they've already done the shots between like the little girl in the multicolored coat and the mysterious-looking.
You know what I
man who
think
tries to
they'll
come
do?
after her.
We don't know
Do you know
what that
what?
is.
Do you know what I think I'll do? Because remember where back when like Danny Boyle was gonna do it, and they were talking about like, oh, he was gonna be like Bond in the era of the Me Too, and everyone's kind of speculating, oh, what the fuck was that gonna be? I know. I think that's what he was referring to. He's probably still gonna be in this film. I think what it is he's a related at the beginning. He goes off to does a mission in favour for Felix. Interacts with some women, turns them down because he's spoken for, and at the end he comes back, and so it's going to be like, so that I think that's probably what they're thinking. They're probably thinking this Bond is in a committed relationship.
So you
That's
don't
what-
think there's going to be a final scene where he has to admit that he like fingered someone else, and he's trying to apologise, but it's not ringing true because he keeps smelling them.
Oh. That's a new title. It's going to be like one of the mighty titles.
What, the smell of minge?
Put
It'll have a dirty title. It's ready to go.
finger pussy. There you are.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So we're as confident as ever then. I don't know. I every time I hear Craig looked bored and all the rest of it, I think, well, no, I've seen a lot of context and I've seen a lot of the date. I've seen the context around the whole slash wrists comment. I've seen.
As always.
Everyone picks on one or two interviews when there are dozens, if not hundreds, that actually tell the complete opposite story. But at the same time, this already feels tired. This already feels tired. Just watching that presentation, I was thinking, this needs new everything. You know what I mean? But we'll see. I suspect the little girl on the lake that's the kidnap of the scientist, isn't it?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's the
That's what I think.
the
it
photo
is.
birthday.
But we'll see. Yeah, the synopsis makes it sound a bit more of a sort of caper than the last few. At least they didn't put the word personal in there anywhere. But and Felix is back.
Bond goes rogue.
Yeah, Bond goes rogue. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they did make the point. He's not retired. He's on indefinite leave. So
I
in
think
other
that's
words,
things like he's retired, or he's on leave, or he's happily married,
Barbara
or he's away
confirmed
from the
it.
service, and it's just like, oh,
he's
might
away
not.
from the service.
Yeah.
But he's on open-ended leave, i.e.
Yeah.
going to. And when he was in Jamaica, he didn't really want to go back. So he's not retired per se, I don't think. But I suppose that's nitpicking. Still going to take a few minutes to get him back in, isn't it? It's still wasted time just because they drove off at the end of the last one. But there you go. So I
I
hope
guess we all but wait, couldn't we?
I hope all the big Marvel fans tuning in to listen to this enjoyed that.
Brief segue.
After they squeezed all the time to watch it, after trying to go to see Avengers Endgame, because it's been ridiculous how busy that's been. Absolutely.
We're talking about Marvel. Brilliant result.
I walked past the cinema and there was a big poster up saying, basically all but one showing was fully booked and was sold out, and I was like, so I thought, okay, this is, I thought, well, I'm glad sadly I didn't see it on Open. I'm gonna go see it tomorrow, but I thought, let's get in there quick before it all gets sold out, and I was like,
Well, I ended up seeing it 3 days in a row because I had tickets for the Friday, or a ticket for the Friday, and that was because I was due to review it for a website.
Headed to setthetape.com, read Dave's review.
Fine, it's an okay review. It's pretty spoiler free. There's minor spoilers for the first sort of act, but not too much. And then I had a friend who's disabled and doesn't go to the cinema very often, and he was going to go to see this, so I agreed to go with that group. So that was Saturday.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I was sat there on Thursday, and I couldn't wait. I just couldn't wait. I just thought, I'll go and do it now. And so I ended up booking something and going straight from work. So I have seen it 3 days in a row. But I'm done now. But we are recording it. You won't hear it until the week of the 19th of... Yeah, so you're not going to hear it for 2 weeks after this is released.
Let the dust settle.
But we'll actually have recorded it before then. We're recording on Wednesday, so we're going to be fairly fresh for that. But it does make tonight's film a little bit of an odd one, just because obviously our Infinity War shows just come out, and you just feel like that flows naturally into Endgame as a review. And obviously we've got a couple of shows in between, and this particularly is very different. So tell us about tonight's, Becca.
Tonight we will be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp, starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Hannah John Common, Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, Lawrence Fishburne, Alton Goggins, Uncle Pena, Bobby Cannavale, Judy Greer, and others, with a original score by Christoph Beck, script written by Eric Summers, Chris McKenna, Paul Rudd, and Gabriel Ferrari, directed by Peter Reed, not Edgar Wright, and released in 2018.
Take it away, Chris. Tonight's film, what do you think?
Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's a bit hard to review this one because I think, on one level, I think it's very small stakes, very small scale, if you pardon the pun, because Ant-Man. But it does it really well. I think Paul Rudd is probably his best role. I don't think I've actually seen him better in anything else, really. I think he handles like the superhero and the comedy and the comedy elements really, really well. And I think he's really, especially when he's like in scenes where he's with his family, particularly his daughter. He does nail it. I think everyone in the cast does a really good job. The only thing is, and it's not a knock on the film because it is smaller stakes, and I think that's good. But at the same time, I don't feel any tension. I think that if there's one major critique of the film is the fact that it just lacks that intensity, because you don't necessarily have to have like high stakes to have that. Sometimes it's actually better to have smaller stakes. Have
Civil War is smaller stakes than Infinity War.
Yeah,
we had this conversation last week, but I felt those stakes more.
Yeah. And it's just and because of the lightness of tone, I think partly it just feels very like sequential. It just doesn't feel very like. It just feels very whatever. But that being said, it's not particularly boring. It's definitely enjoyable. It has some really sort of nice moments and some good gags in it. So yeah, that's first thoughts really for Ant-Man and the Wasp. It can, entertaining but underwhelming, but kind of.
But you're kind of you're not looking to be overly whelmed.
No, but you kind of feel like
overly whelmed,
or just whelmed.
Just whelmed, generally whelmed.
Yeah, you kind of feel like because of the quality of the ideas on the screen and the quality of the actors, you kind of feel like it just missed that something else to make it work even more. But but there you go. When it's on screen, it works absolutely fine. I was never bored once, so definitely in the positive.
Becca?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. That's pretty much how I felt. I think not that this film was anyway, like, not awful, it's not awful. But I think the car chase was probably its saving grace, definitely. But as I say, I think considering the films that are around it, you have pretty high stakes, and obviously Endgame stakes couldn't be higher. So I think considering Scott Lang is I'm gonna try not to call him Paul Lang. He's basically like an everyman kind of style character. He's kind of like one of the, most human perhaps of them all, along with Tony Stark as well. But there's because of like the heavy tone of the previous films that surround it, this feels good. In terms of where it's placed within the series, you do kind of need that palette cleanser, I guess. The kind of lightness of touch to kind of help it along, really. Otherwise, it does get quite dour, quite serious, quite heavy. But I enjoyed this film. I thought it dragged a little bit. But it's good action scenes. It's good to see Walton Goggins plays like a really quite slimy, weaselly villain. Again, not wearing socks with his trousers, so that's always that's always a sure sign.
That's how you know he's sleazy.
That's how you know he's a bit dodge. But no, he's always good value. Happily watch whatever film he pops up in. And cast are on good top form. I'd like to see the Ghost explored a little bit more. I was doing some research, and the comics apparently was a male character, so it's nice to see he switched over to female characters. That's quite interesting. And again, one of the main themes of this film, obviously running through the thread, is family. So it's good to see the kind of dynamic between Lang and his daughter, and the relationship, obviously, between Bill and Ava, and kind of what happened to Ava's family and her father, for example. So it's quite, and obviously you've got Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas as well, in terms of their family dynamics. So it's always good to kind of see those in juxtaposition with each other and see how the film explores that. But yeah, overall, I would say largely inconsequential, but good fun, lots of laughs, very enjoyable. I think it's got a really great score, actually. Good soundtrack.
That.
And again, it's one of those films that really uses its location as a character as well. Been to San Francisco a couple of times, love it, really vibrant scenes. Got some fun facts coming up at the end of the show. I was like, I can't do more about ants, so I'll pick some San Francisco fun facts. But again, yeah, it uses it's a character in its own right. You kind of feel like you're going on a little travelogue of the area, which is quite nice to see. But yeah, it's inconsequential, but very enjoyable.
I will add this though to what I've said. I think one of the crimes of this film though is it kind of just wastes Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, she's promised and she's barely in it. And Michelle Pfeiffer's, I think, like one of them genuine movie stars. I think.
Well, she was introduced just before they go into the action sequence of the film.
Yeah, and it's just, she doesn't get to do a lot, and I just feel like you do feel like, oh, that was a bit too hyped up, and when you
do see her, she's stuck behind like a computer or a console, and it's just like, I agree with you, Chris, she is a bona fide movie star as well. I mean, people of her generation, they don't make them like that anymore.
I mean, look, you have to watch like Grease 2. I mean, I know Grease 2 isn't a exactly high quality film, but you look at Grease 2. Well, exactly. I mean, like, out of anyone in that film, she just stands out. I think she is a genuine movie star.
One of her like a breakout role.
She just stands out. Yeah.
Early in the day. Yeah. So.
It
was a couple of years before Scarface. So yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, I would agree actually. That kind of my one critique that I was saving to the end. But yeah, you didn't spend enough time with her. But
and the camera loves Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, I know it's a de-age sequence, but there's a sequence early in the film with their young daughter. And you just go, she's just lovely there. She's just great.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that. I did get one slight thing wrong there. I think it's obviously after that sequence they get out of that. You see her, obviously. Sorry, not before, because the whole point of that sequence is to get the lab back. Yeah. But it's around there. So obviously, no, I'm in total agreement with Chris on that.
But you have that. You have the beginning bit, then like nothing till like the end, and then the film finishes, So
I don't think it's killing a lot of time, but it is slight. I mean, there's not actually that much to it. We're introduced. I mean, as for me, it's it's a bit of a wash with the first film, but just for different reasons. Its strengths are in different places, or not necessarily its strengths even. It's just slightly different in structure. I mean, the first film had the Marvel registered trademark shit villain. Really sort of, you know, Corey Stoll, was it? Kojak, according to Becca.
He did look a bit like him.
But he was a threat though. He had a menace.
He did.
He
did, but it was just. I think there's a bit of meta knowledge that Corey Stoll doesn't always get the best stuff to do. I mean, he's a little bit. We talked about it at the time. He's a little bit like Jay Courtney that way, in that, and they even look a bit similar facially. But I mean, he was in House of Cards, which pre the whole Kevin Spacey business was a prestige show. He was very good in it, and as I look, you know, through, I mean, he was in First Man last year, which is obviously a prestige film, so it's not quite as bad. But there, you know, he would be on that list of like, yeah, you know, you see his name and you go, I bet he's playing quite a half-assed villain. So I wasn't. The whole point of the first film was to introduce the character, to introduce Hank Pym, to introduce some of the concepts, you know, to start the beginnings of that love story between Ant-Man and the Wasp, and all the rest of it. So that's what that film was about, and then they sort of hung it on this heist plot at the end, which was nowhere near as fun as I was hoping it would be. Yeah, I mean, I'll say a little bit more on it in a future show without giving anything away, but I have more to say on some of the structuring of that film relative to other things Marvel have done. But it was okay, it was fine, but you know, the standout things when you look back on it is just Paul Rudd's general likability, his relationship with his daughter, Michael Peña's character, and those are the bits that you remember. And if you saw it on the big screen, I can almost guarantee Michael Douglas stood out to you, but maybe more than, because he's just a film star. It's that indefinable quality that I walked out of the theatrical release of Ant-Man going, fuck me, wasn't he great in it? And when I watch it at home, he's still very good, he's still perfectly fine, but I can't see what it was I was getting so excited about on the big screen.
What was it, that opening bit where you saw, like, all of a sudden you saw young Michael Douglas again?
I don't think it was, although he was a massive star around that time, there's no doubt. And
I thought the de-aging in this film was actually quite good. Because it can be, like we've seen it previously, and it can be a bit dodgy.
There's one example I like, one example I don't, but we'll come on to that, because and it's not necessarily what I thought theatrically, but yeah, they're always pretty good at it. And
it's always a bit surprising though when you see it, because you're also used to kind of seeing an actor a certain way. But like with Michelle Pfeiffer, I kind of thought, you know, well, her a bit special, like me, you sort of hold an image, you know, in your head, and then you think, oh, it actually looks a bit different. Obviously, as people do age and change, whatever. But I think Michelle Pfeiffer
was at the peak of her fame in the late 80s.
Exactly, but she doesn't look much different now. I mean, like her hair might have changed colour slightly.
Well,
but same with Paul Rudd, for example, as well. I mean, he's just got, you know, really, really good genes, and he doesn't look that different. You know, he might be like 40, 50 or whatever, but it's like he doesn't look that different. So, you know, he's aged really well.
Obviously, you don't have the high structure here, but obviously the principal antagonist of the film is just more interesting. Whether they use her as well as they could, I'm not sure, but certainly Hannah John Kamen is just playing a much, much more interesting character than Aaron Cross ever was. I think I'm normally so iffy and worried about large amounts of, like, a child in a film, a large amount of screen time, but I love that they put some more of that in this. I just because the little actress is good and she has a great chemistry with Paul Rudd, so
yeah,
all
she's
that
fantastic,
stuff,
the little girl, she's great.
They could only touch on it in the first film because obviously part of his drive in the first film was wanting to spend more time with her, so you couldn't have her spend much time with her because the whole point was he was trying to. So in this one he gets to, and their scenes together are lovely. It's again for probably the outright most comedic film or comedic corner of the Marvel cinematic universe. It doesn't play like every sequence is a bit in the same way as say Thor Ragnarok did. It's actually got quite a nice natural humour to it. The Louis scene in this is still really good, and it's got that music we heard of Jackie Brown. I was trying to find it earlier. I don't know if it comes from Coffee or what, but yeah, do 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 You know, that stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Yeah, we saw it in Jackie Brown, but it comes from those blaxploitation films in the 70s. I can't remember which one. But so that's all great. They take everything on like another level in that Jim Paxton's, the Jim Paxton character, Bobby Cannavale, they're outright hugging by this film.
They made up.
It's so all of that is really, really good. The film's really slight. There's hardly anything to it. We get the plot all set up, and there's a few back and forths to get to a bit that ends up with her coming out of that zone, and we'll talk about it as we go through it. Whether we need these palate cleansers after Avengers films, you could argue about, because with the first sort of phase, we went straight on to phase 2 and Iron Man 3, so you don't necessarily need it, but I'm grateful for it and I enjoy them. In terms of its length, it's a shade under 2 hours. Bear in mind the Marvel credits are always long because of the amount of effects work and stuff, so the film's probably about an hour 50, a little bit less than. I don't actually think there's a load of padding. I've read a lot of social media in recent days, a lot of people have been...
Oh, I won't do that, Dave.
Well, people I trust. No, I mean, I'm talking friends and people I trust and stuff like that. They've been doing big Marvel rewatches to get to Endgame, and everyone kind of likes these films. They don't rank them fantastically high. They point out correctly that a large part of the appeal is, frankly, in fact, most of the appeal is Paul Rudd, and I would agree. But I read a couple of things with this film that said, oh, it's a mess and it's full of padding, and I don't agree. I just think it's really slight. The one real bit of padding in this film is, and I'm sorry to say it because you both, well, certainly Becca just praised him, but it's Walton Goggins. Walton Goggins is an actor I've liked in almost everything he's ever been in. Couldn't fucking stand him in this film. He got on my tits immediately, and he just felt superfluous. Every time he turned up, I was just like, well, we don't need him here. They're already fighting the fucking ghost on this, journey.
Yeah, I would probably agree. He's like a villain too far. I mean, not really a villain, but he's kind of like...
Well, he's
he's probably one too much, but he's just kind of doesn't really... He's a bit reckless, but he's good. He's good to watch. He's good value. He doesn't phone in his performance here, even though he might be
the only threat is Hannah John Kamen. She is the only threat in this, but at no point do you ever feel like they're going to be beaten. I mean, it's decent. I will rank it in the middle, somewhere near the original Ant-Man.
Where I would say it's like, when I talk about there's not very high stakes. Well, I think what the problem is, nothing feels like it is at stake. It just feels like a bunch of stuff that gets in the way.
Yeah.
And that seems like to be the attitude to like the film in general. Like,
they are trying to get the original Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, out of the quantum realm. That's the whole point of what they're trying to do here. We've never met Janet Van Dyne, and Hank Pym is not the main character. So we'd love to see her because it's Michelle Pfeiffer and she's always really good, and we saw the de-aged version of her, and Scott cares about Hope, so he would want to help her to have that, and we don't want him to get in any trouble when he's only 3 days from the end of his sentence. But frankly, if all of that went sort of south, it would be a bit like, well, so what? Ant-Man will turn up in a year or two in something else, and his sentence. Well, we don't want him to go away because obviously he's going to need to turn up and things. But
well, the fact is, we know Thanos going to turn up first, man, in the work. So
we'll talk a lot about that when we get to Endgame, because there's a lot of things where I go, without giving anything away, I just go, does that mean X? And you will come out with a lot of questions if you haven't seen it. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it just fine. I enjoy it kind of unreservedly. If I'm, it's not even a question of being underwhelmed. I went in expecting something nice and low stakes and reasonably nice to look at, and an engaging leading man and some good supporting players and a plot that made some sense roughly. And that's all I was expected from the film, and I got that. It falls somewhere in the middle because it doesn't do much wrong either. It may not blow us away with anything, but it hasn't got any of the flaws of those films near the bottom where you're going, I'm actively not enjoying this bit, or that bit really doesn't make sense. Yeah. If they've got one thing that they've really let go of since the first film, is they've moved away from trying to explain things, and it's really up to personal sort of currency with this stuff, how you find that the first film, you shrink, but you're all still there. Your molecules are just that much closer together. You're tightly packed. That's why you're powerful. On that logic, if you became really big, you'd be that much weaker, surely. And
they're kind of some inconsistencies.
They kind of just let all that go in this film and just say, go with it. Actually, I sort of don't mind because they've got a history of Marvel of doing that. The first Iron Man film tried to sort of half explain some of these things, and by the third film he could fall thousands of feet with no ill effects. So I'm okay with it, but yeah, any attempt at some kind of quasi pseudo-science has gone now.
It can be explained away in the greater scheme of things.
It's the fancy element that I think gives them artistic license, because obviously working in like places where in current jobs such as like the medical field, for example, like I do, like you see people do stuff in films, they're like, well, that wouldn't happen. You sort of like, well,
that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't happen. Yeah.
They've got to this and not go that, because like there's real terms, and obviously like it's a film, so you just let it go. But I think in terms of like when it comes to like more fantasy things, you have an element of going like, well, this isn't based on any real science anyway, so
you have to kind of you have to go in with an open mind in that respect. Like if it was say like if it was based on like a true medical story or something, you as a medical professional, Crystal, certainly obviously both working for the NHS, both of you would be like, oh, that wouldn't be right, or they would do this differently, rah, rah, rah. But because there's the fantasy element, you sort of have to take a little bit of...
I'm not clinical, though, so...
No, but sort of go in, you have to go in with an open mind, as you said. There's a fantasy element involved.
It's only that I think that they tried to the first time. If they'd never done it, and they'd gone, we've got this magic thing that will shrink you or grow you, you go, well, fair enough. But of course, they made this thing about the distance between molecules or atoms or cells or however they described it. So it stands out a little bit this time. But I have to say, it's a ton of fun. It starts in a nice place. All the daddy-daughter stuff that I would think on paper would make my teeth itch, I really, really like.
It was cute, wasn't it?
The supporting characters all work really well. Little touches like him with magic, him with the cop, or the FBI or whatever it is. All of that works really well. Hannah John Kamen's an interesting character. I think, well, she's not a character. Anna Starr, the ghost, is the character. But where this film ends up leaves me to wonder what ended up happening to her.
I'd like to see another film with her, perhaps.
There are a couple of blind alleys. I don't think they get the best use of Lawrence Fishburne here. But I enjoy it as far as it goes. And I think that's about it, really, from me.
Also, like to Angelina Lilly, she's one of those actresses that probably should have been a bigger star. I think I probably mentioned that on when we reviewed it.
Yeah, she's just more famous, isn't she? I think.
I love the fact they call out her stupid haircut in the first one in this film.
Yeah.
When we get to Louise's speech, because she looks a lot more natural here. She looks a lot more but she looks a lot more natural here. It's not about short versus long hair. It's either not a wig or it's a better wig this time, whereas it clearly
looks a bit like Uma Thurman a little bit. Obviously, it's not a little bit longer.
In the first one, I was reminded of Spalko or whatever she was called in the fourth Indiana Jones film.
Oh, that's true.
I've always hated
she was
that
a little
performance.
bit like
Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones. In this film, she's just got more natural hair. But yeah, the look's better, apart from the cock and balls on the front of the outfit.
Once seen, you cannot unsee.
With that, shall we discuss this film sequentially, folks?
Yeah, go on then. So, where do we start? We start with
the little sort of narration from Hank, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We basically sort of see what we kind of like was told, what we kind of saw in the first film, where
previously on Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Well, so it is literally the same shots, actually.
It sort of picks up, doesn't it? And we kind of go behind the scenes.
But he's talking
with
to his daughter, so this time we get the preamble as well. When he told Scott about it, he was just saying, well, there was this thing, the Soviets accidentally fired this missile at us, and we flew to it, and you got them flying to it, and all the rest of it. You got all that. With this, you get them going to that mission, saying goodbye to their daughter and leaving her with the housekeeper and stuff.
Yeah.
Then you get the post bit where he comes back alone and has to just look at her and say, I'm sorry, I've lost your mum. You don't get any in-scene dialogue. It's all voiceover. And then when it cuts to them...
They don't seem to be in a hurry, though. It's like, no rush. There's just literally like a missile being launched, but we're just gonna go away.
Our flight's not till 4, and and we might catch a movie on the way. It's that sort of. It's quite. I've never thought of that, Chris. It's quite a languid tone, hasn't it?
Very chill, very
And
relaxed.
she's doing a little joke to her daughter, pretending to fall asleep.
Yeah.
This is the first bit of de-aging. Obviously, those two. Michael Douglas looks spot on to me.
I think they both look
Michelle
really good.
Pfeiffer on the big screen didn't look right. Now, when I say didn't look right, I don't mean bad. I don't mean. I'll say it now, and I'll talk more when we get to the scene. I think Lawrence Fishburne looks terrible, de-aged. It isn't like that when I look at it and go, that doesn't look good. It looks natural. It looks like a real actress at that age. But I knew Michelle Pfeiffer in that era, and I like some films from that era, particularly like The Fabulous Baker Boys, and it didn't look quite right on the big screen both times I saw it. I watched it today at home, and it looks spot on, and I don't know if that's a different screen size or what.
I don't think it was Fabulous Baker Boys. I think it was.
Well, they
was
used
something
several
else.
films. They used Lady Hawk. They used
That
Married
was
to
it,
the
Yeah,
Mob.
they tried to do like amalgamation
Yeah.
of it and let's make her
Yeah.
look like she looked in this film.
When I
That film,
first
it's
saw
just
it,
like
I thought of Married to the Mob, but when you actually go back and watch Married to the Mob, she was, I think she had a bit more of a perm in that. But yeah, it is kind of mid to late 80s era, and it sort of didn't look quite right or in an almost indefinable way, but it didn't look bad. It was extremely good work. It just wasn't quite her. And like as I say, I watched it today, no problem at all with either of them. So, I mean, that's a long way round to saying it was fine, but I'm saying on the big screen it didn't quite play. But yeah, it's good. They've
It's
captured.
It's better than Wolverine X-Men Origins, isn't it? So
What, a Patrick Stewart at the end of it?
the de-aging, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they de-aged old women the same way, I wouldn't want to see everything. You get variable results from it. We'll talk about a lot of the CG when we review Endgame, largely positively, but there are bits and pieces where they're still not quite. It's not as good as it will be, but it's a quantum leap on from where it was, 15, 20 years ago. So they do this pretty well. If you were going to pick any flaws with the de-aging work, it's the actual lighting on the face, but even that in this sequence is fine. So yeah, we get the and when he finishes recounting that story to her and why he didn't want her to be the Wasp. It cuts to what is clearly around the events of the first film, because she's got that hairstyle from that film, which is not what she will have in the rest of the film. And he says, "I think there's a way to get her back."
And and then do we have the Marvel logo?
Then Marvel logo, yeah. It's funny. I always think that they changed that several films ago, but they keep making little changes to it. Because I've noticed in the last couple of theatrical releases, as the Marvel logo pulls right out, you see Okoye.
Oh yeah.
And she's not in it at this stage. I was looking. I was like,
No, they changed
how,
it as
how,
the
how
series
early
evolved.
did they put that in? Because this is a couple of films after Black Panther, of course.
Yeah, they changed it as the series evolved.
They do make small changes to it, yeah, as they go along, which is something I hadn't noticed. Okoye's in it now, and she isn't in it here, or at least I couldn't notice her. Yeah, so and then I presume we must cut to kind of the homemade Raiders sequence, I suppose.
It was a little bit like that. Because we didn't see the title of the film till the end of the film.
Yeah, so it basically it's Scott Lang, pissing around with his kid.
Yeah, and again,
Basically having a bit of
on
fun.
paper, on paper, I hate this. On paper, because it's going to be several minutes of an annoying kid, and it's going to be something that has really fuck all to do with the plot, and it will probably go on for several minutes, which it kind of does. But I really like it.
Is it like the unorthodox kind of sense of humour they have, like the fact that she gives him like a trophy of like the best princess
grandma.
or something.
Yeah.
That's it. And he kind of like say, oh well, that's all. There's kind of like a really sweet but kind
She
of like
completely gets him in a way
Yeah.
she probably would. She probably has a wonderful relationship with her mother, but the way she gets her father is just different. They get each other. I also think, like, I think being honest, I just think the little girl's pretty cute as well. I think she's quite good for a child
The little
actress.
girl's really good,
And
isn't she? She's so
well,
good.
they've generated chemistry between them.
Yeah,
and
it actually feels like they could be father and daughter.
Kid actors never have any chemistry with anyone because they're busy. They're too busy working hard on their normally very wooden performances. They've got real chemistry, these two.
Yeah, really, really good.
And I just love the elaborate nature of it. I mean, he will have worked so hard, if this was real, setting up what is like a 5-minute little sequence
Like
he's
a
got
little-
worked out. And it will have taken like a day to build.
Well, to be fair, what else has he got to do?
Play the drums and video games.
Spend 2 hours in the bathroom.
He's
whatever
living with
that's
Louise.
about.
The magic tricks.
The whole point is they're in some sort of like cave or something, and they've got to meet monsters and get through like traps and all this, and booby traps and lasers, all to get into a central chamber where they can steal this prize, Raiders style, which is actually a little trophy she bought him with "World's Best Grandma" written on it. And he was like, and he loves being world's best grandma, and she says, well, it was all they had, and it's great. And then Louise is like helping and actually interrupting to reveal a bit of plot, which is they're putting in a big bid for a security contract on some building, and Louise is trying to keep costs low. So it's, do we need so many security cameras? And Scott is the expert. They've set up basically, I think it's even called ex-con or something. They've set up...
Yeah, the business is ex-con because they are ex-cons.
They've set up a security consultancy, basically. Because who would know best than a bunch of thieves?
Exactly.
It's poachers turned gamekeepers, really.
Yep.
But yeah, I love all this. It's really good. But it ends with them sort of going down a long slide and his foot going through the fence. And of course he's wearing a tag.
Yeah.
Which, and I'm not going to spoil Endgame, but the very first shot of that film is Hawkeye wearing similar. So yeah, they're at home with tags on their ankles.
And then so we get introduced to the rest of the family. His ex-wife and the partner, and everything's going great with them. And of course, the FBI turn up because Dad got set up. So you have the FBI agent. I think he's called Wu, who explains why he's like got a tag with. Basically, it's because of Civil War. Essentially, he decided to sort of like help fight the Avengers with.
Well,
with
mother
Cap.
and daughter are constantly like, leave my daddy, leave Scott alone.
Yeah.
You got Paxton there going, they're within their rights because he's a cop himself.
So you can't do this, yeah, they can.
Yeah, they can. And he says it with none of the sort of distrust of early in the first film.
Yeah.
He's on Scott's side, but he's like, I'm sorry, they can.
Yeah, he's kind of. Well, actually, they can,
And when he talks to the little girl, he's like, well, you have rules at school, like you can't draw on the walls. Well, your daddy drew on the walls in Berlin with Captain America.
Then he goes into this kind of like
violating
legal mumbo jumbo because they broke our school, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sokovia Accord, yeah.
It's like section 16, paragraph 4 of the Sokovia Accords.
Or something like that.
This guy's really good. He's just
He's basically
He's quite funny.
Kim Jong Un in the interview.
The interview, just on a quick aside, the interview I was expecting to be dreadful because most of those sorts of films tend to be. The only reason there was any hype around it was because of the whole storm around the film.
Yeah.
The interview is actually fairly funny for at least half of it. It kind of tails off, but the first half of the interview is quite funny, and he's funny in it. Kim
definitely.
Jong-un.
Yeah, he's quite good. Like as a comic actor, he's quite good. So.
I wouldn't say it's a great film. I would say the first half of it is better than you might expect, and the overall effect is okay.
It's quite a hard role to pull off, like a comedic version of Kim Jong Un.
Yeah, I know it is.
He's having explains that we get a bit of an explanation of like
the magic. I just want to make sure we mention the magic. That's a bit of this scene as well.
And he's
he actually learned like the magic for this film, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Wu has a bit of a weird kind of like pally relationship with Lang. In this kind of like, well, I'm not going to do a job, but I kind of like to be mates at the same time.
See, now when I first saw this, and we'll talk about it towards the end of the film, I suppose, I thought I saw a romantic interest.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure now when I rewatch it. It might
Yeah,
just, I don't know. But in the last scene
you
of the
weren't
film,
the only one who thought that. You weren't. I
at the end of the film, I genuinely thought, actually, you'd quite like to take him to dinner, wouldn't you? I'm not sure. But anyway, he definitely wants to get to know him better, seems to like him, but at the same time, the ambition of his job, he'd love to catch him at something.
Yeah.
Because he races there with, like, almost giddy every time any sort of alarms. And
Yeah.
he's only got 3 days till his sentence is up, and then he's got to go to, like, 3 years probation.
You know what it is? I think he's just a bit of a Billy No Mates. So I think so anything exciting happens, it's like, ooh, goody, and like an interaction with people he kind of like latches onto. I think that's probably more what it is. It's just like he just doesn't have that many friends, and he's a bit socially awkward.
He's asking how he does the magic trick. Basically, he's learnt in a load of close-in magic.
Yeah.
It only really matters for a bit of a sort of payoff line later, but it also shows you how empty his life is, but also how hard he works for his daughter.
Yeah.
Because he's doing close-in magic. Now, of course, you could CG all this, but I would imagine Paul Rudd had a go at learning this.
Yeah, I think he learnt it. Fun fact, folks, he learnt it as prep for Israel.
That's an early fun fact, folks. So we also learned the fact that Hope and Hank are also on the run because of the fact that he took the Ant-Man costume / technology, therefore implementing them in the crime, which seems a bit harsh if you ask me. I'm not quite sure how that makes them criminals as well, seeing as they weren't like.
If they've provided it, I suppose. I don't know.
But yeah, but it was like
If he just stole it, it's a different matter. I don't know.
Well,
it played that way to me today. To be honest, I'm questioning you, but I thought literally the same thing earlier. I'm thinking that's quite a harsh interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's surely it would only matter if you shouldn't have that technology in the first place, so that'll be the crime. But do you know what I mean? It's like, but if they're legally required to have that technology, then by law,
they're allowed to have it.
Scott took that, without their say so. So why are they held accountable? You know what I mean? It's a bit.
I don't know. If I beat someone to death with a cricket bat you give me, does that make you guilty? I don't know. It depends what you give it to me for. If you give it to me and I play cricket with it for a year, and then kill someone, then that's different. If you give it to me as I'm walking out the door to go to kill someone, that might be different. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's probably right.
Civil War is a year after Ant-Man. You think, well, they didn't give it to him to go to Berlin, but actually it follows Age of Ultron. So the Sokovia Accords aren't in effect till. No, you're absolutely right. The Sokovia Accords aren't in effect till Civil War anyway. So they're being judged for something they've given him before that happened. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, but all right. So they're now on the run and hate Scott as a reason for that reason.
The only reason why I could probably think, unless they were asked to comply with something and decided to leg it for whatever reason, and that's hence why But I am reaching there for an explanation. The film doesn't really tell me that.
We just have to accept now they're effectively, whether they wanted to be or not, they're Team Cap.
Yes. and they are now criminals, and so they're kind of like pissed off. They kind of
much of this. One of the things I really like about this film, and we'll talk about it through, it doesn't necessarily make the film better, but I think it might affect overall ranking compared to the first one, is they take a few of the little visual gags just on a bit further, because when you think that big train battle in the first film, and then it cut to a wide shot and it was a little fucking toy thing falling over. Well, the similar jokes in this film about like these tiny cars going along, they're looking like little fucking Hot Wheels or whatever. All of that, I think, plays really well, and the concept of the fucking building just being pulled around. But again, it's all, you've got to turn a blind eye, because surely the inside of that building must be a right fucking state, tipping it to 45 degrees constantly and slamming it down on tables and stuff.
I was like,
really? I was thinking about like what they do for plumbing or electricity. Like how's that work?
Well, yeah, like at the end with the house, I was thinking, don't houses need like foundations at all now? And why is the road not damaged?
Yeah.
And I think
it's on wheels anyway.
I think part of it. Yeah. Well, why doesn't it just roll off then?
Exactly.
It turns out the floor wasn't completely flat. I think they brought that on themselves, though, those sort of questions, because you go, well, it's Marvel, just accept it. And I think, well, I'd be tempted to a degree.
Gotta roll with it.
But the first film tried to attempt to, like, give an explanation, however sketchy, for most things. And then this film just shits on all that. And every time they go into the building, it's fine, no matter what position it's been in.
Everything's kind of, like, stuck down.
It's just let it go, yeah. It's a bit like Into Darkness, where the tribbles must be glued to the table. So yeah, but so we've had the opening scene with all of that. We've had. Do we have the bit where he's How early is he kidnapped?
Well, he's got about. We learn he's got about 3 days till he's like gets the tag released, and so he does his usual, like, you know, faff around with the drums or sing karaoke, and he has a bath, and then he gets this, like, connection with Janet, or, you know, like, he gets, like, a vision that kind of their minds
He dreams
kind of
he
connect.
is her.
Yeah.
He dreams
Yeah,
he's
that's
playing
it.
hide and seek with a young girl. He doesn't know who that young girl is. It's Hope, actually. But when he sees himself in the mirror, it's a very shocked Michelle Pfeiffer.
So, and out of the whim, he contacts Hank just to kind of say, look, this is a bit weird. You probably don't want to hear from me, but I just thought I've got to let you know. Yeah. And then, then he sort of, I don't know how, I'm not sure, I forget how they knock him out, but they do basically kidnap him because obviously he's connected to her in some way, in some regards, so they need what he knows to find her.
He recognises Pym as, at least theoretically, what he comes up to refer to as quantum entanglement. Because he said, you must have tangled with her down there, and he's got, I wouldn't do that to you, Hank. I respect you too much.
Which may or may not be the title of the new Bond film. Quantum entanglement.
I thought you meant I respect you too much. There's a Me Too title. Daniel Craig and I just respect you too much. You've got to have your own barriers. I respect that.
Daniel Craig as James Bond.
I respect your barriers.
Daniel Craig as James Bond in. Sorry, is that too fast? It's okay. I don't want to make this weird.
Yeah. Is that enough, or do you want me to? Do you, like Alan Partridge? Do you want me to move on to the other one?
Oh dear.
Yeah. So they he's watching TV of an evening. He feels like a little sort of
James Bond in consent agreement.
Yeah, it probably will be like that.
Consent renewed. If they're not going to use license renewed, consent renewed. Leia Seydoux is back. That would work.
Will be consent renewed. Yes, consent
Are
attained.
you still happy for me to do this? Well, Felix is here. He's not joining in. No. I don't think that's it. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I think that's pretty much what it will be.
It can't be any worse than Purvis and Wade would have come up with.
Listeners, if you could think of a brilliant title for Bond 25, drop us an email. Expect us to talk at gmail.com.
Preferably, though, if you can think of a crap one for Bond 25,
Yeah, hilarious.
we'd have more laugh listening to those. Than
I'd wager that'll probably end up being better than what they actually do pick.
It'll be
even if we try and pick a crap one.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say, I'm not one for let's do continuation novels, and I'm really not one for let's pick a title and retrofit a film to it. I never understand people going, they ought to call it this, and you go, you don't even know what the fucking film's about. What do you mean they ought to call it this? It's one of the corners of Bond fandom I don't get. I think it's fucking dumb. When it actually comes out, arguing whether it's very Fleming or it fits Bond, I understand completely.
A Kill to Die For.
But having said all that, I am curious whether they can use the title of a continuation novel but not the plot.
I kind of don't think, because of the information of the plot that we kind of know about now.
License
that sounds really
renewed.
bad. Yeah, I
but
kind of
license renewed makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that does make perfect sense. Better than Shatterhand, for example. So I kind of think that's out the window now, knowing the very bare bones of plot that have been revealed so far. So I kind of get the impression that that's out the window. Although if they release it Shatterhand tomorrow, I'll be like, oh. But still.
Yeah,
It makes it. I feel it's less likely.
Unless they completely retcon Blofeld.
Oh, bloody hell.
What do you mean by retconning?
Like, completely, actually, the fan zone, but as it actually wasn't the real Blofeld. I'm the real, that kind of thing.
Real Blofeld was Freddie Mercury.
I'm Blofeld, so is my wife.
And actually, Brian May was the power behind him anyway.
So he was the real Blofeld.
The real Blofeld was Brian May.
Oh.
So far from going
That explains his
bald,
funky hairdo.
far from Blofeld going bald, he's getting ever more hair.
It was a wig all along.
It was a wiggy, curly wig all along.
Right. Okay. I admire your focus. So anyway, back to this film. He gets stung
Sorry,
in the
got
neck
diverted.
he's got stung in the neck watching TV of an evening, and he wakes up to find he's basically been kidnapped by Hank and Hope.
Yeah. And they're on the way. They're going to get this device off this black market dealer called Sonny Birch. Yeah, he's played by the wasted Walt Goggins.
The way they've written this, he needs to be here, but I question it wouldn't have taken much to write him out, and I don't think you could have written that end action sequence in with very few differences. You could have avoided this character, because I don't actually think he's that interesting a character. But anyway, it is what it is. He's got this sort of team of black market people that are selling things, because they're ever since that sequence where he said we can get her back, they've been trying to build something to go to the quantum realm. That's what they're doing inside this office block that they seem to have bought and yet been able to move around everywhere. And so she's buying parts where she can get them. And Sonny Birch is obviously one of the dealers.
And yeah, so because he has informants in the FBI, figures out who she is, and then
she calls herself Susan or something. She said, you're not Susan, you're Hope. Yeah.
And then kind of like sort of makes a sign like this kind of deal with this other that he's got this other business connection with that he wants her to do, like kind of makes it for. So it's like, oh, I'll give you this, but you have to start this company or do this thing for me. And she says, no, rather not. Then he kind of goes, well, I'm not going to give it to you. So she ends up taking it. She gets into the Wasp suit, which we get our first action scene. We see her in action.
Yeah, one of the few things I just read in the background to this film is they deliberately tried to, I think, feminise her fighting style at least, anyway, because it was a lot of sort of, I can't even remember the word for the martial arts from the first film, but she was using a certain style that was very efficient in the first film, and they wanted this a lot more languid and fluid, and I think they've done it. I think through whatever combination of stunt work, CG, and actress this is, she moves very well.
Oh, definitely.
And the constant changes of size and stuff like that, it works really, really nicely. Hannah John Kamen as Ava Starr. She's not referred to by her name very often, which is why I tend to go by the actress's name more than I should.
Yeah, I think you hear her, referred to as Ava like a handful of times. Or Ghost, which is kind of like the
visibly
the name.
Quite interesting. Visually quite interesting to look at. An interesting problem that this character has, that she sort of phases in and out of reality. So think of like Vision's skill set, although this isn't a skill set; it's a vision. It's an affliction. But with Vision, obviously, he can phase. He can go through walls. He can be solid 1 minute, and then the next minute you put your hand right through him. She's got this as an affliction. We later find out, but of course she's just trying to steal this part, and Hank and Scott are out in the van with eyes on this. Now, why did they actually need Scott here? Because he didn't go in originally, did he?
No, I think it was once Ghost got involved, then Scott decided to get in to help her out.
But they didn't know that was going to happen. So
no.
why did they pick? When I think about it, why did they pick Scott up for this in the first place?
It's the broad of the thing. They're going to get the thing that they needed, and then they'll use Scott to get the info that he had, or find out what he knew. So it was kind of like, oh, we've got this appointment, so we'll get Scott on the way, and then do this thing, and then. Do you know what I mean? I think it was part and parcel of it. That was the thinking.
Okay. Obviously, she gets sort of out away with the thing, and because she can phase, she basically puts her hand through Hank's neck, but phased. So, like, if she formed solid again, she would kill him, and it's to take the lab, which is, of course, is this little sort of brief, kind of. If you think about a small sort of pull-along bag that you would drag behind you, it's about that size. And so she steals the lab. And there's not a lot to this film. It's all about, there's a couple of back and forths on this lab to finish this machine to get, hopefully, Janet back. Yeah. That's the whole point. They need to finish the sort of, whatever they call it, to get into the quantum realm. The machinery to do that needs to be finished, and it's inside that lab. So they're buying the bits to finish it off to get her back. And the whole point of this film is a couple of back and forths on where that lab is. That's all it is, while Scott tries to avoid being caught away from the property because he's meant to be under curfew. What we haven't mentioned is they've put the tag on a giant ant. That because they can control ants, they've trained this ant to mimic his routine.
Yeah. So they keep cutting back in the ants, like playing on drums and shit.
Playing video games and eating boxes of cereal. Yeah. And first time Louise sees him, he goes, "Scott?"
Is that Scott?
So where we go, we meet. They go and find Bill Foster, who they think might be able to help because it was similar technology that Hank.
What it is they say, could we think Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they go technobabble, and what they say is, can we technobabble in order to find out where the lab is? Yeah. Well, I don't have such an equipment. We could, but my equipment to do that is in the lab. So they've got to go and find someone with a similar skill set to Hank in order to work out where the lab is to go and get it. That's all this is. And Bill Foster, played by Lawrence Fishburne, is a lecturer, isn't he? Mm-hmm. At whatever that is, University of Southern California or whatever it is.
MIT?
Yeah. San Francisco University.
MIT's not there, is it?
No, I know. I was trying to be funny, but it didn't really work, so...
Yeah,
considering it's in another state.
Yeah, Massachusetts. You couldn't get
much further away. It's on the other side.
Okay.
So,
So Bill Foster and Hank have a patchy history.
Yeah, they're not the best of buds, are they?
Yeah, all we're told is they were partners, and he was impossible to work for Hank Pym, basically. That's all we're kind of told at this stage. There's a bit of dick waving contest about how they've both been in both him and Scott have been in giant form.
They compare sizes.
Yes, 21 feet against 65. So yeah, it's quite an easy win for Scott and sort of Hank's technology. But yeah, they really are slagging the shit out of each other, aren't they? The two older guys.
They are. Egos at dawn.
Yeah. So they. Yes. So after they said, "Wait, I can't really help you, but here's what I know," and they try to slag it because the FBI is there, more sort of tracking Hank and Hope. And
they've been seen basically. Yeah. When they do leg it and they go in, Bill does actually cover for them. But yeah.
But he helps locate where Eva is or Ghost is, and they hatch a plan to kind of take the lab back, and yeah, I mean they essentially get captured. It turns out that Bill's actually with Ava.
What we have missed is it's a trap. But what we have missed is Scott getting his suit back.
Oh yeah.
Or is that later because it's a second suit, isn't it? The first one malfunctions.
Yeah, no. I think he's still using the second one because he's like, he was talking about like, have you still got the suit? And he's like, well, no, I destroyed. No, he asked, hope you destroyed it but then he
says he does at the start. And it's all this, I respect you, of course I would, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously her and Hope have a bit of a moment where he said like, well, if I asked you, would you have gone? And she's like, well, if you did, you wouldn't have got. If I did go, you wouldn't have got caught. So there's that, and then
you do get could you stop thinking about my daughter long enough to lots of those sorts of jokes in this, more than the first film even. They have to. Cassie has taken that world's best grandma to show and tell at school, and it's hidden in the base of that. So there's a point where he has to go in with the previous suit on to steal it, and that suit is malfunctioning.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, that's it. I think we've got about
So
that
he
bit.
was wearing that. Sorry, it wasn't before the ghost fight because he was wearing the suit, but it started malfunctioning afterwards. That's absolutely correct. So before they go to deal with Ghost, they have to change that suit, and he's like shrinking to the size of like a small child, and then a big adult, and things like that. And it's played for comedy.
And it's actually pretty funny because he goes back and he's like the size of a small child. They're like,
He says, "Do you want a juice box and some string or whatever?"
Yeah.
And he's like,
have you actually got that?
yeah, very funny.
A juice box and some juice strings, you know.
Do you actually have that? So yeah, they go to Ghost. They go to Ghost. Hank is obviously still in the van. There's lots of little bits of conversation we miss. One other thing with this film we haven't mentioned is the little cars, and I love that. It's an extrapolation on from the tiny train and all the rest of it. Obviously that wasn't shrunken down in that film, but just how things look quite dramatic until you cut wide on them. When he's first kidnapped, she's driving him along in a car, and it turns out it's tiny. It's the size of a little Matchbox car. The slight inconsistency is it's driving at a normal pace, and when it cuts wide, if that was real, it's going at an unbelievable pace. But that little joke where they can shrink a van, they shrink the car, put it away, take out a van, and expand that.
Yeah,
I do quite like all that. It's just nice little things that you don't need explaining.
it's just a fun concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
what do we want to drive today? What do we need to drive today? And it means they own about a dozen cars. They've got like a little fleet, really.
Yeah, I wonder where they get it from. Anyway, so they've been caught by Ghost and Bill, and they're kind of like we kind of get the backstories as to why it's kind of associated with Hank sacked Ava Starr's father, and he could continue.
He says afterwards. Hank says afterwards to Scott that our head's been filled with a load of lies. Whatever Starr's father was called, I can't remember now, was a liar and I think he even says a spy. What she's been told, though, and the story that is told, is that he was working with Hank until he ended up disagreeing professionally with Hank. Hank not only fired him but got him blacklisted. He tried to carry on his work privately, but in order to get notice and funding and all of that, he was taking bigger and bigger risks. He has what looks like one of these quantum realm devices, and it's kind of effectively, for want of a better way to put it, backfiring. So it's just hitting them with something. And he tries to get mother and daughter, his wife and daughter out of there. He's killed by it, and she's hit by a blast of something which starts this phasing, which she explains is basically her body being pulled apart and smashed back together constantly. Yeah. It's sold as extremely painful, and it's one of my favourite things about her performance. I think she sells the pain. I think she does. She's a young lady in a lot of pain. At some point, she is talking about. At one point, she says to Bill, how can we get them? And it's like, he's got a daughter. Bill won't have anything to do with that, and it just paints her as right on the edge of what's the word I'm looking for? I would say ethical, but none of it's ethical. But even in the sort of honour amongst thieves kind of realm.
In the situation, he feels it's the more right to kind of help her.
Yeah, he's trying to help her. It's as simple as that. And of course, he's no fan of Hank anyway. He's probably bought into the whole, well, Hank's done something to upset her father, to ruin her father. So there's all that as well. So they're effectively fine. They managed to escape by Hank effectively faking a heart attack.
Yeah.
Needs his pills, and his pills turn out to be little.
You also have Cassie ringing the whole gag of like, sorry, it's an emergency.
Yeah, it's where are my sneakers or something.
Yeah. So the escape using like the little mint tin that's full of ants that just sort of
which they can then
out.
expand, and they just basically surround Bill, so they're just kind of they're kind of trapped and they can get out.
Does that mean
and
they're androids?
They've got the lab as well then. Doesn't that lead pretty much straight? No, it doesn't. It leads to their arrest, doesn't it? Oh no, actually no. They go somewhere. They go somewhere and expand the lab, sort of in a woodland somewhere. And then we got the Louise scene. Because
Yes.
Louise calls, because they're putting together this plan. It's quite well plotted, really. It's thin, but everything kind of has a point. That whole action sequence, that whole playing with his daughter thing, is to reveal that trophy. That trophy is as a point. And it's the same here. They're doing this. They've got this business, but if they don't get this contract, they're going to go under. They don't really have any work, and this is quite lucrative. And it's something to do with one of the plans that Scott has, and it's at the lab. So it's like, well, you're going to have to come to me to pick it up. So this top secret lab location he gives to Louise.
And Louise is on the way, but Sonny Birch comes along with his henchman, with which may or may not be truth serum, which I think is actually quite a funny gag.
They haven't left yet. They're still in their office sort of stroke store, but they're about to leave. And as they're about to leave, Walton Goggins turns up, or Sonny Birch.
Yeah.
This Louise sequence, I think on first viewing, I thought wasn't as good, but having watched both Ant-Man films recently, this is at least the equal of the first film.
Yeah, I say it's slightly funnier, just because if you look at the facial expressions of them both, and just I think it's
They
slightly funnier.
They describe they're going to give him
Stan Lee, do you? You don't get a Stan Lee saying things in Louise voice.
No, it's like, he's like, oh, it was fun in the 60s, but now I'm paying for it.
But you do get, you do get Scott and Hope talking like Louise. It's like, oh yeah, damn, she's gonna do me like that.
Look at my hairdo, my business.
and he's like, I can't tell you this, but I gotta go off to Germany. Stuff he wouldn't have said. And he's like, well, damn, and she throws her phone in the bin and stuff like that. A ton of background, and they basically say, well, you set the jukebox going, and he's going, oh, this jukebox that was like full of Morrissey. Half of what he's saying is utterly irrelevant. All they want to know is where this.
He's like, I'm getting there.
I'm getting there. But it's got a ton of background, and it's got like Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly making out in the house and stuff like that as he's telling the story, and they're talking about the hair, and they're making out. It's like, you're damn fine and stuff like this. It's really, really funny, and it goes on for quite a while, but it's also intercut.
Damn, he really broke my heart, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's intercut with but when they meet in prison as well.
Yeah,
and he says, well, we're going to be best friends.
Well, but I need part of. Well, guess what? You're unlucky. So
we just did the whole sequence backwards, didn't we?
Pretty much.
Kind of.
But yeah, they say you're going to inject him with like this sort of thing that makes him more susceptible, and he says, "Isn't that basic truth serum?" It's like, well, it's not truth serum.
There's no such thing as truth serum.
It's like, well,
it is. That's totally truth serum.
Well, it kind of is, you know.
And then all his crew are like agreeing. Well, that's truth serum, isn't it?
If it looks like a duck, looks like a duck. Well.
Well, I love the fact that they're never really that scared. Louise seems to be almost enjoying the whole thing. It's good.
Well, he said like, well, what you need to consider is I've got a lot of allergies. So,
think of that.
So yeah, then while they figure out they figure out how to connect with Janet, because Scott gets another connection where Janet sort of like channels through him, and then tells them where they can find her, and then when he wakes up, he gets a phone call saying like, right, well, not only the FBI, but somebody Birch knows where you are, so we need to move. And so that instantly sort of tells Scott he needs to get out, while they're kind of pissed off the fact that they just completely jeopardized everything again, because of this.
Yeah, they look really disappointed in him as well, because after the whole Berlin thing. But it's kind of not. Well, it is his fault, but it's not his fault. He's just trying to please and help everybody, and it's just the essential for everything decency of Scott Lang. He's for everything he's a thief, or he's been a thief, but there's an essential decency to him. He wants to do everything right for his daughter, everything right for his ex-wife and her partner, everything right for Hope and Hank, everything right for his work colleagues. So it's just difficult, but yeah, they're onto him basically. I think then they come out and shrink the building, and they're arrested, aren't they?
Yeah. He manages to get back on time.
He gets back home. Yeah.
Yeah. And so everything's okay. He's got like 1 day left now, I think, or something like that.
1 day left, yeah.
Yeah. And then
the whole thing's 3 days. The whole film is 3
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
and and he has a talk with his daughter and Cassie, and they I'm trying to think now. It kind of talk about sort of what makes a good partner and that, and she basically kind of convinced him to go back for him, essentially. So you kind of have what happened in the first film where Hank broke Scott out of prison, but in reverse now you got like him breaking them out.
That's right. That's all done relatively efficiently, and the reason I say that is I rewatched it today. It's one bit of film I missed. I went to my kitchen to do something, and I thought, well, I know what happens here, so I'm happy to let that run. And I wasn't in there very long. Came back out, and all of that breaking him out thing was done.
Mm.
So it's relatively efficient.
Yeah, it does move along quite quickly, actually.
Yeah.
And then you pretty much it's pretty much start to get on that chase scene, essentially.
It's just one long ride for they are only fighting over this building. That's what all the film is, really. We've had just a few back and forth. I mean, literally, the whole plot of the film, had he actually bought that part, taken it back to the building, fitted it, Scott's there and had some connection with Janet, they'd have found her then, and that would have been the whole plot of the film done effectively. It's relatively...
No, I've missed something out.
What have you missed?
Hank does go in to get Hope, but then they find out that they're being followed, so they have to kind of shrink the building while Hank's in the quantum realm. Trying to get Janet.
Right.
So,
yeah, Hank says I'll do it. Goes in. Some of the stuff that's been sort of seeded early in the film is it messes with your mind when you go in. You know, very similar to like Ant-Man in Giant Man form. Actually, kind of seems to tire and disorient both of them in their two different roles in this sequence. Yeah, so it means you can't come out. The building's got to be full size and ready. You've got to be ready to be pulled out. So all the time the building is in a reduced size, there's risk to Hank and Hope, or Hank and Janet rather.
So then you basically have like the big action scene where you have both Louise and Scott and Hope like running out on Ghosts on the Tail with the motorbike, and it's like both catching like the lab essentially back and forth.
Yeah, the lab is going back and forth between Walton Goggins, Hope, and Scott, and the Ghost, basically.
They pack quite a lot into this car chase, don't they? I think.
Because
you've got kind of like follow the lab, literally follow the lab.
His suit is malfunctioning again, so he's going to various different sizes as well.
Yeah, up down, big small, definitely. And like the epic when they switch cars between like the Hot Wheels like van and the sports car as well. And there's a lot going on. I think it's the best sequence in the whole film for me. It's
by far the best sequence in the film. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the heist in the first film as well.
Definitely.
We'll probably put it above the first film. You can argue about sort of structure, plot. You can argue about the sort of science or lack thereof. You can argue about the two different villains. But frankly, the big money sequence in this film, I prefer. The daddy-daughter stuff is better in this film than the first one. So those two things.
Yeah, these two aspects raise it up.
Probably put it over the top. What I will say, and I don't want to pick on the guy because I loved him to bits, is I hate Stan Lee's cameo in this film. It's my least
funny.
It's my least favourite of every cameo he's ever done. It's my least favourite because the line's not funny because Stan Lee was fucking in his 40s or 50s in the fucking 60s anyway, so like that doesn't work. But he's looking frail and he looks like he's reading it off an idiot board. So it's not a very good line.
I suppose he's kind of just playing like the man in the street, right? He's not like a janitor or a bus driver, or he doesn't appear as a character. Like he's just Stan Lee going to his car and it's like, oh.
Yeah, but it's a poor line, badly delivered by a failing man.
Well,
and on that basis, I loathe it.
What's your favourite Stan Lee one?
That's a tough one. Is it Deadpool? He's got a good one in Deadpool. If you're talking MCU, I like his one in the original Amazing Spider-Man.
That's quite good, actually.
What, in the library where he's just on his...
If you're talking MCU, relatively few of them stand out. When he loses Cap's suit,
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
that was quite
in the
funny.
Winter Soldier.
Oh,
Although I thought he
damn,
looked
I'm
frail.
screwed.
Yeah, I thought he looked frail there, to be honest, though. Yeah, most of his cameos are fine. This one I actively didn't like because I just thought they're on the verge of almost needing to drop that because he looks too frail.
He's
and
getting on a little bit,
the line, I didn't find you might have Becca, and sense of humour is subjective, but I thought the line was terrible. I think it was funny
It's
at
just one
all.
of those things, isn't it? I think for he's kind of not playing a character or doing a role or sort of thing like that. It's just literally, here you are, here's a line, I mean, it's kind of, it doesn't really kind of have any sort of real meaning. It's like, it's not really consequential. It's not like he's smoked a spliff and then seen this car vanish before his eyes, But it's a quick line, it's funny, it's serviceable, move on.
Without giving it away, I like his cameo in Endgame.
Oh, he pops up, okay.
Yes, no, that I think that is the last one he filmed, but I do like it.
Well, that's nice that it has one.
Infinity War's actually pretty good.
Which one? What did he have in that one? I can't remember.
He was the bus driver, so like, what, we've not seen an alien spaceship before?
Yeah, that was okay. Most of them are
yeah.
fine. Most of them are sort of a similar quality to each other. I quite liked him as Hugh Hefner in the first Iron Man film. They're normally okay, all of them, but like one or two have jarred. And funnily enough, the Winter Soldier one, is one of my favourites and least favourites at the same time. In that it's a good line, but he was starting to look quite frail there as well. Tony Stank was all right.
Tony Stank, yeah, that was quite funny.
That was okay.
Stank?
Very few of them do I care about either way.
The Captain Marvel one's actually quite a nice one.
Yeah, to beat
that's true. Actually, yeah, that's quite funny.
reading the Mallrats script is a nice little touch.
It's classic. Definitely.
The only thing is, you could tell he just died because it just runs 2 beats too long. They have a long, lingering look at each other. I thought, unless you two are going to make out now, you've edited this wrong. They're always all right.
They probably do like a supercut of all of his cameos.
I bet there's one on YouTube.
I'm sure there is.
But I don't have any strong feelings about them most of the time. I like them most of the time, just about. But this one I really, really hated, just because he looks so frail. There's a camera cut as well. You see it from wide, and then it cuts into a different angle, and it's like, cue Stan, and then he awkwardly delivers this line, and I'm just like, oh, the Endgame one's better.
Okay.
We'll
I'll be sure to keep an eye out for it when I see it. That's one part of the film I don't mind having spoiled.
But the actual sequence is well, I don't want to spoil
It's not really a spoiler
alert
alert because it's something that's
Hang
going
on,
to happen. So.
what date's this show coming out? You've had a week and a half. No, I can't spoil it because you haven't seen it, Becca. It gives
At this point in history.
No, I can't get it. There is even if I gave you the basics of it, it gives something away, so I can't.
Literally everything in Endgame is a spoiler.
Yeah, see, Chris will understand why. I cannot tell her anything.
I've seen the trailers.
I can't. No, but Chris, I can't tell her anything about his cameo, can I?
No, not without spoiling.
No,
an
I
aspect
can't.
of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Like the first 5 minutes, you're going to talk spoil. He's going to go to spoiler territory with something like Endgame. So yeah. So yeah.
You could do like after we sign off, for example. I'll say goodbye, and then maybe like you guys could do like let's discuss.
No, well, we're going to talk about it soon enough anyway. So.
All right, Chris has spoken.
Well, his players can't points because we could talk about it soon anyway. So
yeah,
but yes,
we record it in 3 days. I can wait that long. I can wait that long.
3 days, I'm counting.
So, what we're talking about? Yeah, so cut long story
we're
short.
We're talking about the action sequence generally.
Yeah.
And there's not an awful lot I want to say about it, but it's
very fun.
It's, yeah.
Inventive. I think go back to like at the beginning. I think it's just there just seems to be a lack of tension with it. That's my only major issue. Other than that, it's all very well done.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. So, but there isn't a lot I want to say about it. In that it's almost like it does have it's wisely got things to cut between, because there are points where you've got Walton Goggins having to fight Hannah John Kamen. There's points where Louise is involved and he's in a different car and he's having a ton of fun. He's genuinely loving it. It's great. I really like the sequence. It's visually inventive. You've then got like Paul Rudd having to like ride a pickup like it's a scooter or something, because his size keeps changing so dramatically. She's having to work very improvised, the Wasp, having to slowly, having to quickly sort of resize things. So you've got cars driving it. If you think of the bit in the Ang Lee Hulk film, where Hulk finally comes out in San Francisco after, leaping all the way there, roughly where he changes back to Banner is where some of this action is taking place. And there's a bit where she's like being chased by a car, and she'll suddenly like shrink the car, and then that car will smash into something because it's somewhere you can't go. It's like, gardens on the side of a cliff sort of thing. You've seen it in Ang Lee's Hulk and other films, but that's the one that occurs to me. So I mean, I really like the invention.
It uses the location well.
It uses the location well because there's lots of elevation changes, and you've got tiny little cars having to sort of navigate big jumps and things like that. I think, and all the time you've got Louise enjoying himself, so some of them are feeling tense, some of them are having fun, some of them are just desperate to get what it is they want. Obviously,
and you got Hank in the quantum realm doing that stuff. So
and you've got him starting to sort of not lose consciousness, but he finds her. We know he's found her, but he can't get back out, and he's not used to being there. So he's absorbing all this energy that he's not that comfortable with,
Yeah. And then so cut long story short, Scott kind of has to make himself big because Sonny's got on like one of them like sort of.
Yeah, they've chased it. So at the point, Sonny's got the building, and he's gone on to like a ferry with it at the sort of bay. So where else would you get onto it? It has to be a bay, doesn't it? But so Scott gets after it. He's on an ant where he says, "I'm going to call you Antonio Banderas," but the ant is attacked by a seagull, so he's sort of pitched into the water. He has no choice but to resize, and he resized. He becomes giant to sort of get the building back.
And then he kind of has struggled because he starts losing consciousness because he's just got so big.
That's seeded earlier. He said after Berlin he slept for like 3 days or something.
Yeah.
It just massively burns energy. So he's starting to pass out. He's starting to come off as a bit drunk, isn't he? Almost. Yeah. Similar is happening to Hank in the quantum realm, but not as dramatic.
He's just managed just to get the lab on some ground before he passes out. Hope goes in and saves him, but Ghost manages to make it big to go and do what needs to be done. And then because she wants to sort of use it to cure herself, but it would mean losing Hank and Janet.
Losing her. That's the point. They need to get her out first, not just draw energy out of there. I don't know that bit's that well told, because you think it's not sold that it's not possible to do both. But anyway, at the same time, Sonny's team are basically hit with the truth serum.
Yeah.
So when the police turn up, he's like, "I've got restaurants and they've got terrible code violations. Some of it's shocking." And the guy who was arguing with Luis goes, "It is a truth serum."
So you have that.
And it's Scott's business partners and friends that actually save them, because they are about to be shot by Walton Goggins. Yeah.
So Bill Foster kind of goes, "Well, hang on, if they're going to get Janet, they might be able to help you," because it's like now he's like thinking, "Well, no, this is going a bit too far now," because but she knocks him out. So Hope and Scott get in, and they manage to stop Ghost and bring them both back, and Janet essentially does she kind of temporarily cure her? What's she do?
She just transfers a load of energy. The bit that I'm not clear about is it's obviously not a cure; it's a medicine. It's palliative in that she can stabilise her for now with all the energy she's absorbed. But of course, at the very end of the film, we find they're going in to get more of that stuff. So she obviously needs regular doses of whatever that is.
So it must be kind of like her battery's running low, and she's just like juiced her up.
Yeah, basically, that's one way to see it, and we will talk about that when we get to Endgame, because I have a question about that that's implied by what goes on there. But yeah, so she's able to help her for that. She can relieve it, and of course, not only are you relieving the symptoms, but the pain that comes with them.
And then it's all kind of all happy families, then, isn't it?
It's wrapping up now.
Yeah. Scott gets there back.
Of course, the FBI
time.
are onto his tail, and he's got to get back before they go to his house.
Yeah.
Which every time the sort of thing gets triggered, they have to. They've also got to release him as well. I don't think it's been triggered because the ant's wearing it, but they go there fairly regularly, and they've got to go there to release him. They suspect
that he's out because because of all everything that's going on.
They've spotted a giant thing, and they know he's fucking Ant-Man stroke Giant Man. He was arrested after Berlin for the exact same thing. So, which was on film because of security cameras at the airport. So they go home. There's a little fake out with putting the suit up to full size, and long story short, he gets home, and when they get there, he's like playing the drums or something, isn't he? Or is that the time he's pretending to be sick?
He's playing the drums this time around.
It was earlier in the film where they tried to catch him out, and Cassie held them off long enough while he pretended to be sick. Okay, he's playing the drums this time.
Yeah.
And Woo's like, damn it.
Just needs a break.
Yeah. They again, as will be clear to people who've seen Endgame and stuff, there are issues around time and aging in the quantum realm, but they did decide to age Janet just so it wasn't creepy when she reunited with Hank Pym. So she has aged while she's been in there. Ava's effectively, they go back into, he's released from his house arrest. Ava and Foster kind of aren't, they seem to go into hiding, but obviously we find out in the mid-credit sequence that's not the case as such, or at least Hope and Scott know where she is. What else? Is that it, really? More, friendliness between the sort of extended family, but Hope and Scott are back together.
Yeah.
They go to a drive-in movie, and it turns out to be a laptop, and they're in a tiny little car, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's a nice touch.
Well, what would happen if it went on screensaver? That must be what they do then.
Jump up and down crazily on a key.
Anyway, so that's it. We get the post-credit scene, which kind of leads into Endgame.
The mid-credit scenes is they're in trying to harvest more sort of this energy to keep Ava, what's called, stable. And while they're in there, the snap happens, because this is happening just as sort of Infinity War is happening. So Thanos' snap happens, so he's not pulled back out, because Hope, Hank, and Janet are all dusted.
Damn it, Janet.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Although before this had happened, they went and put the house on the beach or something, didn't they? So Hank and Janet are sort of still together. If you like.
That was a nice sequence. That was
a nice little sequence.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a bit heartbreaking to sort of like come back. You're like, sorry, Hank, I've kind of moved on.
You're an old man. I'm not interested.
I'm kind of moved on now.
What are we going to talk about? I've got 3 decades of fuck all by myself.
So he's kind of stuck there, and that's it. Other than
the final joke is just the ants playing the ant playing the drums, but we saw that in trailers anyway.
Yeah, and then that's it. So final thoughts.
Well, before I go on to final thoughts, I've just been reminded by having it playing in the background. I do like Stan Lee's cameo in Age of Ultron when he's hammered.
That's
drinking Thor's little drink. That's cool.
Yes.
I like that one. So final thoughts from me, just very quickly. There's not much to this film, really. If you actually lay out the plot, 2 or 3 things happen. There's just a few back and forths to sort of pad it out a little bit. Doesn't really feel like padding, though. I think it uses its running time quite well. I think Paul Rudd's extremely charming. Him and the girl playing Cassie have really great chemistry, so I enjoy actually all of that, and I can't remember the last time I've tolerated kids in a lot of films, and I've seen the need for kids in a lot of films to tell a story, but to actively enjoy a sort of parental relationship, a parent-child relationship in a film is very, very rare, and I enjoyed it here. Luis, all right, it's a redone joke, but it's really funny. It's done really well. I like the sort of quote-unquote antagonist in the film. Not really a villain, but although she does hew close to villainy at times. But
she's unhinged, but she's
she's willing to go too far.
So.
Yeah, she's willing to. She's almost willing to go too far a couple of times.
She's someone who's desperate, essentially, and she's kind of like someone who's
desperate.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. I enjoy her far more than say Aaron Cross. I think I enjoy the big central action sequences more than I enjoy the heist. Although on paper I prefer the heist because I like heist type films. The film does let go of any sort of claim on trying to explain how any of this works, which it had in the first film. So it's a very similar standard to the first film. I think a lot of people rank these very low. It would be somewhere in the middle for me. I think I know roughly where that is. I can't really, they're enjoyable. I don't get particularly excited about an Ant-Man film coming up, but I want to see it. I always enjoy it. I'd happily see more. And that's about it from me, really.
Becca?
We do this again. Shall we dance?
Sure, I'll go. I don't think I've got any more to add as usual. Really, it's perfectly fine. And same, I think it's probably. I think in comparison, I think the only thing different between this is you can kind of tell that it hasn't got Edgar Wright's fingerprints on it, so you can kind of tell what style painting Reed's going for, and he hasn't done a bad job. I think the only thing is it's probably just comes across as a bit too light a touch. There's no as I said before, there's no real tension in any of it. But other than that, I think its tone's quite well handled. I think the balance of comedy and actual storytelling is all pretty well done. Lots of likable characters, lots of interesting characters, certain the villain. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. Mid-tier Marvel. Probably had the potential to be better, but there you go.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all the above, really. I say all the cast final on top form, decent action. Best scene in this film was probably the car chase, van chase, truck chase.
The chase.
The general chase through San Francisco. But yeah, it's one of these things, I think, because of the heavier film surrounding it, we do need that lightness of tone, the lightness of touch, little comedic moments. But yeah, it's kind of fairly inconsequential. But yeah, good action film, solid bit of adventure. But we kind of need to feel, need to kind of have more from these characters, like to spend a bit more time with them. Some characters have more screen time than others, obviously. But some kind of feel rather sadly underused. But overall enjoyable. I'll kind of rank it like middle to, in the middle somewhere, but kind of higher end rather than lower end. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable.
I think, I can't imagine there being much, if any, distance in rankings between the two films, and I think that's because they're not films you feel a great deal about either way. I'm sure you could pick apart the plots and stuff. I mean, it's funny thing is they feel very Marvel, but they don't feel very Marvel in that there's nothing else in Marvel that feels like these films. But you can tell they're a Marvel Studios film. And even the degree of comedy in it, I mean, they're the most comedic corner, but like I say, as much as I like Thor Ragnarok, every scene felt designed around a joke. And I don't feel that here. It's just organic with a very likeable leading man, and I'm glad Paul Rudd's a star. I'm glad this made not something more of him, but this gave him a higher profile that he deserved, and to come along to him when he was in his late 40s, I think that's lovely.
But I'll tell you what, Dave, I know we just watched and reviewed this film, but I still don't know much about it.
I always worry about when we don't know much about these things, because it invalidates what we've just said. Not only that, you never know when you're going to be asked under oath.
But the scare, it seems to be every week. I mean, if only there was some sort of segment where we were informed in some regard.
We keep finding ourselves in this situation. It's embarrassing, really, Chris.
Yes.
I don't know what we do about it. And you notice how Becca is never in this position. It's just me and you looking like a couple of prats.
Well, you guys know all about the film. I'm just here to go hi and provide some sometimes not very fun or interesting facts.
Fun what? That sounds fun and interesting facts.
Yes. Although
Why is this the first we're hearing about this, Chris?
So you telling me Becca has some sort of exciting information?
Yeah, I'm not sure that exciting information is the most catchy
Punchy
name for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't even cut that down, can you? Really, you can't really call it sight from. No, it don't really work. You can't.
interesting information. No.
Well, something more alliterative.
Exciting exchange.
Exciting exchange. No, that's
No,
too long. For fun, she mentioned fun. Fun. Facts, Chris.
That's facts.
That's
Becca.
facts, folks.
And
No, hang on, that don't work. That's facts, folks. No, we'll work on that one-liner.
Facts off.
Becca.
No, I said at the top of the show. Yeah, San Francisco is a big character in this film, so I've got some.
Who plays
It
him?
is appropriate to say the top of the show because it
Well,
is
not the
always
top, in the middle of the show.
No, it is
Towards the start of
appropriate
the
to say
show.
the top of the show because it's always steeply downhill from there, isn't it?
Well, it's quite hilly, you know. It's quite a hilly place to be.
Anyway, carry on.
I was trying to read some of my travel diaries from many years ago, but I can't actually find them. They're probably up in the loft. But no, fun fact number one, San Francisco has the second largest Chinatown outside of Asia, and is also the oldest Chinatown in North America, plus it is home to the largest and oldest Japantown in North America.
San Francisco was the place where I had the best squid from the Chinese restaurant I've ever had in my entire
Yeah, that's
life.
also true. Yeah, I had some last time I went there and I was like, oh, it was, I'm not a big fan of like squid, it's generally quite rubbery, but it was actually quite nice. Okay, yeah, fun fact number two, obviously, actually looking at it now, they're probably quite asinine facts rather than fun facts. Yeah, fun fact number two, the colour of the Golden Gate
Sell
Bridge.
anything with that name, are we?
Asinine facts. That's not very fun. It's like the opposite of fun.
We put the ass in asinine.
But literally. So yeah, if the US Navy had their way, they would have painted the Golden Gate Bridge a very fetching yellow and black stripy pattern, so it would stand out better with the fog that keeps rolling in. But no, the architect designed it, painted it in international orange, which was originally kind of meant as like sort of indicate sort of sealant, but turned out the colour was quite hot, so they basically kept it international orange. And when literally they've, obviously people are employed to go and paint it that colour all year round, but I thought it was quite funny how like we actually did a trip across the bridge, and boy was it windy, but our tour guide was, I think he must have been new, and he was like, when they finished painting the bridge, they literally turn around and start again. I was like, really? You think? So I thought that was quite interesting. Little bit, it was a fact. It wasn't very much of a fact. But bless our tour guide, she was trying to stumble through in the wind, telling us all this stuff about the Golden Gate Bridge. I really admire her for that. Anyway, fun fact number three, the Beatles gave their last concert at Candlestick Park in August 1966. Was a bit of a failure. They lost money on it. It's a capacity of like nearly 50,000, but I think they only sold like 25,000 tickets. So, but anyway, bit of fun fact. Fun fact number four: Muirwoods is well known for its beautiful redwood trees. They can grow up to 380 feet, with the actually tallest tree in the forest is 258 feet. Fun fact number five: Fisherman's Wharf is the most popular destination to visit in San Francisco. 12 plus million visitors annually. And actually, in terms of the US, it is number 3 in the most popular destinations, behind Disneyland in California and Disney World in Florida. And that's my fun facts about San Francisco.
That's factual. No, we don't like that.
That's not really fun. I was kind of thinking, what can I pluck from my brain, from what I remember, my various trips?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. We learnt something, and
Great.
if we asked anything, we can. Well, I don't know. I'll have to make something else up because I was only half listening. But
You see some famous films filmed in San Francisco. Obviously, you've got Vertigo, Mrs. Doubtfire,
Bullet,
Bullet, of course. What else have we got?
Play It Again, Sam.
That's the one. Star Trek.
Star Trek 4, yeah.
Star Trek 4.
Zodiac.
Dirty Harry.
Dirty
Dirty
Harry.
Harry, of course, famously, definitely.
Mildly pervy Harry.
Mildly,
That's the PG-13 cut.
mildly annoyed Harry.
Yeah. Now there's loads of stuff filmed there over the years.
It's a very, very cinematic city.
Obviously, the new Planet of the Apes trilogy. I say new Planet of the Apes trilogy, but the most recent Planet of the Apes films were based around that area as well.
The first one certainly was. San Andreas.
Oh, yeah, San Andreas, obviously, yeah.
Inside Out, and obviously the the cinematic masterpiece that is Terminator Genesis.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot.
Terminator, unpronounceable, can't spell.
Terminator Genesis coming soon.
Yeah.
starts with a stunning film.
I might have to skip that week.
You're not. That's not how this show works.
Damn it.
And also A View to a Kill. Let's not forget that.
Becca hasn't even seen Terminator Genesis. She's really scared of it now on that basis. She's
On the basis that
so
it's
bad
terrible.
she doesn't even ever want to watch it.
But it has a really cool Korean actor in it, so I'll probably just watch it for him.
Oh yeah, he's done very early.
He's very famous in his native Korea.
Okay. Still, anyway, if we've learnt one thing tonight, we put the ass in asinine.
There you go.
But hey,
And also, let's not forget The Rock.
good old Rock. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah,
he's not a film, Chris.
He's a one-man show business, that guy. Yeah, no, the film The Rock with Sean Connery.
The Rock, yes. The one
Classic film.
bearable Michael Bay film.
Ugh.
He started with like stuff that was bearable, and then just went to shit really fast. So there you
Also,
go.
I think
Anyway,
So was it with Armageddon then when it went shit, or was it with?
Armageddon was pretty bad. Pearl Harbor and Armageddon, which way round were they? Pearl Harbor was after, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was like 2001. Certainly around then, anyway.
Yeah.
Armageddon wasn't good. But The Rock was alright. I mean, actually, The Rock's a bit... Everyone raves about The Rock, but I find that film a bit too long, to be honest.
Yeah, it probably is.
I always lose interest in the second half of his films anyway, and The Rock is actually no different. But it's night and day when you stick it now next to a Transformers film or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first half of that film is like pretty good and doesn't have any of the offensive sensibility he normally has. So yeah, not bad at all. But I do lose interest in the second half.
Sean Connery does seem to have quite good chemistry with Nick Cage in that film.
Yeah, Sean Connery was just... he was really great right till the end. I'm not saying every film he did was great, but he still had bags of screen presence right until the end, and it's really sad to see him looking so frail now, because it doesn't actually feel that long ago he retired, but of course it's 15, 16 years. Yeah. But anyway, as for social media, you can find me at ThePastyKid1976 on Twitter.
You can find all the shows, all the old shows on Simtracks.co.uk. So if you want to revisit our old episodes, including the Bond series, you can find them all there. If they're not on iTunes, that is.
Some of them are disappearing, aren't they?
Yeah, they are all on YouTube, with the exception of some of the music episodes, because the number of copyright infringements in trying to put a music episode up is ridiculous. I think I managed the first one with a cut, and some of our earliest episodes I cut straight to Becca talking at the very start of the show, so to avoid copyright problems. But now I just put the show up, so there's probably about 3 shows that aren't there, and some are little edited.
It's getting near impossible, isn't it, just to kind of like upload anything that isn't 100% yours, isn't it? You know,
Normally now we just get an email that says, effectively, you're not in any trouble. That has copyright material on it, and basically ads will play on your show. That's it. So we normally get away with it now. It's been a very long time since I had anything blocked, and in fact, I even managed to get Led Zeppelin on there for the Thor Ragnarok trailer, which I didn't expect to, because earlier in our existence, I tried to do some Led Zeppelin and I couldn't. I've tried to use, I don't think I would now in the current climate, but I've tried to use some Michael Jackson in the past and struggled.
Yeah, maybe not
In fact, I did use Man in the Mirror on Star Trek Nemesis, just when you think what that film's
That
about.
was before it all came out.
Well, no, it was already out then, Becca. Nothing's actually new. He was a kiddie fiddler.
Well, no, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's more in the...
about
it's
that.
more
Yeah, but
in the public
all I'm
consciousness.
saying is, a new film's been made that most people believe some are sceptical about, but it was kind of pretty much accepted he was 10 years ago, so I don't see.
No, that's it. But it's more in the public consciousness now, whereas kind of it is
It's
kind
in
of.
public. It's in the public.
That's kind of what I meant in that terms of in that context.
But there's that. But I think I tried to use some Madonna once and couldn't. So high-profile acts, I've definitely had the Beatles blocked in the past. So it's just difficult with certain things. So if I go and play, I never normally had problems with the composed stuff. So if I played start of a theme, it wasn't normally a problem. So our shows didn't tend to have copyright strikes. Our trailers did.
No.
Now I'm the last few I've struggled with that. I say struggled. It goes through. You get
Even
an
in terms of
email
like fair
telling
use, you get like there's a time limit, isn't there? I think.
No, that's not on YouTube. As soon as it recognises, that's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that at all. And in fact, if you're repurposing music for the purposes of either education or parody or anything like that, basically using it for anything other than its original purpose, which was here's some music, I hope you enjoy it. It should get through anyway, but it doesn't. It's not how YouTube works. It's got some recognition software in it that it will process, and it will get to about 95%. And when it sticks on 95% processed for a long time, you know you're about to be told this is copyrighted material. But it doesn't normally block or stop anything now. We just get an email to tell us about it. That's all, and it's fine. It gets through. We don't have a problem, but I wouldn't attempt to put a music episode on there. I mean, we've got an upcoming Marvel one, and it will just recognise everything and block it. I even had problems with some John Barry. Some John Barry ended up getting blocked in German regions and things like that. Once it starts getting blocked in parts of the world, I don't want to put that up, so I don't do it. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but all of our shows, with the exception of a couple of music, are on Do You Expect Us to Talk's YouTube channel. They're all at cinematronics.co.uk, including the Cinematronics episodes myself and Chris has done. I'm on most of them. Chris has done a few without me with other people, albeit a few years ago now. And but basically, Chris's entire back catalogue of other podcasts is on there as well, if you go back beyond 2015. So yeah, our stuff is still available.
Yes, so don't forget to check us out while you can and go back and listen to our back catalogue. If you've not heard us before, where have you been all this time?
Yeah, and it's not while you can either. We're not going anywhere.
No, we'll be here for a while.
Yeah, okay.
We survived the snap.
Yeah, yeah. There's implications to that I want to discuss with you, but I can't until Wednesday because you haven't seen the film yet.
No, I will be seeing it soon, but we can discuss Wednesday.
We'll discuss on Wednesday. The show itself will be out around the 19th, something like that. But in the interim, finally seeing the light of day is a show we actually recorded many, many weeks ago. Becca.
Yes, so long ago that I forgot. Yeah, Do You Expect Us to Talk will return with our review of Captain Marvel.